The elevator doors opened to reveal a penthouse that looked like it had been decorated by someone who thought money could replace taste. And Lily Kane stepped inside with her portfolio tucked under one arm, and a determination not to let her jaw drop at the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. "Miss Kane," a man in an expensive suit materialized from somewhere to her left. "Mr. Reynolds will be with you shortly. He's finishing a call." Lily nodded, setting her bag down on the marble floor that was so polished she could practically see her reflection. The space was enormous, sprawling, and completely soulless. Chrome and glass everywhere, furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum rather than a home, and not a single personal touch in sight. It was the kind of place that screamed wealth but whispered loneliness, and she had seen enough of those in her 5 years as an interior designer to recognize the signs immediately. She walked toward the windows, her heels clicking softly against the marble, and looked out at the city stretched below. It was beautiful up here, removed from the chaos of the streets, but something about the space felt disconnected, like whoever lived here was observing life rather than participating in it. "Impressive view, isn't it?" The voice came from behind her, deep and smooth. And when Lily turned around, she had to remind herself that she was a professional who had worked with wealthy clients before, and should absolutely not be affected by the sight of a tall, broad-shouldered man with dark hair and piercing blue eyes walking toward her in perfectly tailored slacks, and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up to reveal tanned forearms. "It's stunning," she managed, extending her hand. "Lily Kane, thank you for considering me for this project." His handshake was firm, confident. "Sebastian Reynolds, I've looked through your portfolio. Your work is impressive. Thank you." She pulled her hand back, ignoring the warmth that had spread through her palm at the contact. "Your assistant mentioned you were looking for a complete redesign." Sebastian nodded, gesturing for her to follow him deeper into the penthouse. "I bought this place 2 years ago. The previous owner had it professionally decorated, and I just kept everything as it was. But recently I've realized that I'm living in someone else's vision of a home, not my own." Lily pulled out her tablet, already making notes. "What kind of feeling are you looking for? What do you want to experience when you walk through that door at the end of a long day?" He paused, seeming to actually consider the question rather than giving her the usual something modern and expensive response she typically got. "Peace," he said finally. "And maybe a sense that this is actually mine, not just a place I sleep." She looked up at him, surprised by the honesty in his voice. Most of her wealthy clients wanted to impress visitors, not create sanctuaries for themselves. "Then we can definitely work together. Can you show me around?" The tour revealed exactly what she had suspected. The master bedroom looked like a hotel suite, pristine and impersonal. The kitchen was state-of-the-art but clearly unused, with appliances that still had their factory gleam. There was a home office that was all business, a gym that was actually well used based on the equipment, and 2 guest rooms that looked like they had never hosted a single guest. "You cook?" Lily asked as they returned to the main living area. "No. I mean I could, but I usually order in or eat at restaurants." "You entertain often?" "Rarely. Business dinners happen at restaurants. Hobbies, collections, anything you're passionate about that I should know about." Sebastian leaned against the kitchen island, crossing his arms. "Are these questions part of your standard process?" "They are if you want a space that actually reflects who you are rather than who you think you should be." She met his gaze steadily. "I can give you another sterile, expensive penthouse if that's what you want." "But you said you wanted peace, and peace comes from being surrounded by things that matter to you." Something flickered in his eyes, an expression she could not quite read. "I collect vintage watches. I like jazz music. I used to read constantly but haven't had time in years. And I actually do enjoy cooking, I just convinced myself I'm too busy for it. Lily's fingers flew across her tablet. That's a start. What colors make you feel calm? Deep blues, forest green, warm wood tones. Textures, leather, soft fabrics, not scratchy ones, natural materials. When you imagine your ideal evening at home, what does it look like? He was quiet for a moment, and she glanced up to find him looking at her with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. Music playing, something cooking on the stove, maybe a book on the coffee table that I'm actually reading. Natural light during the day, warm lighting at night, a space that feels lived in, not staged. Then that's what we'll create. She saved her notes and looked around the penthouse again, this time seeing not what was there but what could be. I'll need about a week to put together a comprehensive design proposal. We'll need to gut most of what's here and start fresh. How much disruption are we talking about? You'll need to stay elsewhere for at least 6 weeks, possibly 8 depending on how extensive the renovations are. Sebastian nodded slowly. That's fine. I can stay at one of my hotels. Of course he owned hotels. Lily added that to her mental file on Sebastian Reynolds and began packing up her things. I'll send you a contract and preliminary budget by tomorrow. Once you approve, we can begin immediately. Miss Kane, he said as she headed toward the elevator. Why did you become an interior designer? The question caught her off guard. Because spaces matter. The environment we live in affects everything about how we feel and function. I like creating places where people can actually be themselves. She pressed the elevator button. Why did you hire me instead of one of the bigger firms? Because everyone else wanted to know my budget before they asked what I wanted. The elevator doors opened. I look forward to your proposal. As the elevator descended, Lily caught herself smiling. Sebastian Reynolds was not what she had expected. Most billionaires she worked with treated their homes like investments or status symbols. But there had been something genuine in his responses, a hunger for something real beneath all that wealth and success. It made her want to create something truly special for him, something that would transform that sterile penthouse into an actual home. She spent the next 5 days barely sleeping. The design came together in her mind fully formed, and she worked frantically to translate that vision into renderings, material samples, and detailed plans. She sourced a custom dining table from a craftsman in Vermont who worked with reclaimed wood. She found a leather sectional that was both sophisticated and comfortable enough to actually sink into. She designed built-in bookshelves for the living room and a reading nook by the windows where Sebastian could watch the city while getting lost in a novel. The kitchen would be opened up, made more inviting, with a large island perfect for cooking and casual meals. The master bedroom would be transformed into a sanctuary with layers of soft textiles in those deep blues he had mentioned, blackout curtains for quality sleep, and warm wood furniture that brought nature inside. When she finally sent the proposal to Sebastian, it was nearly midnight. She collapsed into bed, exhausted but satisfied. This was some of her best work, and whether he accepted it or not, she was proud of what she had created. His response came at 6 in the morning. When can we start? The renovation began the following Monday. Lily had worked with her usual contractor, Miguel, who ran a tight crew and delivered exceptional quality. Sebastian had moved out the previous weekend, and they began the demolition immediately. This place was sad, Miguel said, surveying the stripped-down space on day 3. Like a fancy coffin. Lily laughed, but he was not wrong. With all the cold, impersonal furnishings removed, the penthouse felt more alive already, full of possibility. Sebastian stopped by periodically to check on progress, and Lily found herself looking forward to his visits more than she should. He was easy to talk to, asked intelligent questions about the design choices, and seemed genuinely excited about the transformation. There was something about the way he looked at the space, like he was starting to believe it could actually become a home, that made her chest tighten with an emotion she refused to examine too closely. "You changed the lighting plan," he observed during a visit in week 2, pointing at the new fixtures being installed. "The originals didn't provide enough warmth. These have dimmers so you can adjust the ambience depending on your mood." She pulled up the specs on her tablet. "They're also programmable to mimic natural light patterns, which helps with circadian rhythm. You think about everything, don't you? That's what you're paying me for." He moved closer to look at the tablet screen, and she became acutely aware of how good he smelled, something clean and masculine with a hint of cedar. "I'm starting to think I'm paying you for a lot more than interior design." "What do you mean? You're not just redesigning the penthouse. You're redesigning how I live in it." He looked at her, and the intensity in his blue eyes made her heart skip. "The cooking space, the reading nook, the actual comfortable furniture, you're trying to change my habits." Lily felt her cheeks warm. "Is that a problem?" "No," he said softly. "It's just interesting. Most people in my life tell me what I want to hear. You're telling me what I need whether I asked for it or not. I can scale back if you want, don't." He stepped back, breaking the moment. "I trust you, keep going." After he left, Lily stood in the middle of the construction zone, dust motes dancing in the afternoon light, and tried to calm her racing pulse. This was a client, a billionaire client who lived in a completely different world than she did. The fact that he was attractive and surprisingly genuine did not matter. She was a professional, and professionals did not develop feelings for their clients. She repeated that mantra to herself over the next few weeks, even as those feelings grew stronger with every interaction. In week 4, Sebastian showed up with coffee for her and the entire crew. In week 5, he asked her opinion on a business decision that had nothing to do with interior design, then actually listened to her answer and later told her she had been right. In week 6, she found him sitting on the floor of what would soon be his reading nook, looking out at the city with an expression of such profound loneliness that she almost went to him, almost sat down beside him and asked what was wrong. But she did not, because that would cross a line she could not uncross. The furniture began arriving in week 7. The custom dining table was even more beautiful than Lily had imagined, the wood grain rich and warm under the new lighting. The sectional fit perfectly in the living room, creating a conversation area that invited relaxation. The bookshelves were installed, ready to be filled. The kitchen gleamed with new countertops and high-end appliances that actually made you want to cook. "It's incredible," Sebastian said, walking through the nearly complete space. "Lily, this is beyond anything I imagined." She was directing the placement of artwork, but his words made her turn. He was standing in the middle of his living room, and for the first time since she had met him, he looked like he belonged in the space rather than just occupying it. "We still have finishing touches," she said, trying to keep her voice professional despite the warmth spreading through her chest. "Accessories, books for the shelves, personal items. That's what will really make it feel like home. I don't have many personal items." "Then we'll get some. Come on." She grabbed her bag and headed for the elevator before she could think better of it. "Where are we going?" "Shopping." "You need books, kitchen items, personal touches, things that make a space yours." They spent the afternoon wandering through bookstores, kitchen supply shops, and antique markets. Sebastian bought first editions of novels he had loved in college, a set of French copper pots that made his eyes light up, and a vintage record player with a collection of jazz albums. Lily watched him slowly come alive, the careful businessman facade dropping away to reveal someone with genuine passions and preferences. "This is the most fun I've had in months," he admitted as they loaded shopping bags into his car. "Maybe years." "You need to make more time for yourself," Lily said without thinking. "Life is not just about work and success," says the woman who I know has been working until midnight most nights on my project. She blushed, caught. "That's different. I love what I do." "Maybe I'm starting to love what I do too." He was looking at her when he said it, not at the bags of purchases, and the air between them suddenly felt charged with something dangerous and thrilling. Lily broke eye contact first, checking her watch. "We should get these things back to your place. I want to stage everything before the photographer comes tomorrow." The drive back was quiet, but it was a comfortable silence, the kind that happens between people who have moved past small talk into something more substantial. Sebastian helped her carry everything upstairs, and they spent the next few hours arranging his purchases throughout the penthouse. "Books should reflect actual interests, not just look pretty," Lily said, placing his new acquisitions on the shelves alongside others they had selected. "So we're organizing these by genre and author, not by color." "Thank you for taking me today," Sebastian said from the kitchen, where he was unpacking the copper pots. "I didn't realize how much I needed it." "You're welcome." She stepped back to survey the bookshelves, satisfied with the arrangement. Everyone needs someone to remind them what matters sometimes. "Is that what you're doing? Reminding me what matters?" She turned to find him leaning against the kitchen island, watching her with that intense gaze that always made her feel like he was seeing past all her defenses to something true underneath. "I'm just trying to give you a home," she said quietly. "You're doing more than that, and you know it." He pushed off the island and walked toward her, closing the distance between them with slow, deliberate steps. "Since you started this project, I've been cooking breakfast. I've been reading again. I've been thinking about what I want my life to look like instead of just going through the motions." "That's not about furniture and paint colors." Lily's heart was pounding so hard she was certain he could hear it. "Sebastian, tell me I'm not imagining this," he said, stopping just inches away from her. "Tell me you feel it too." She should step back. She should remind him that she was his designer, that this was unprofessional, that mixing business with personal feelings was a terrible idea. But when she looked up at him, at the vulnerability and hope in his eyes, all those logical arguments evaporated. "You're not imagining it," she whispered. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and cupped her face in his hands. His palms were warm, slightly rough, and the touch sent electricity through her entire body. "I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since the day we met. The way you see things, the way you see me. Like I'm a person, not just a bank account or a business contact." "You are a person," she said, her hands coming up to rest on his chest. She could feel his heartbeat, fast and strong. "A person who deserves to have a life he actually enjoys living. I'm starting to think you might be part of that life." He kissed her then, soft and questioning at first, then deeper when she responded by pulling him closer. It was the kind of kiss that felt inevitable, like everything had been leading to this moment since she first walked into his sterile penthouse, and decided she was going to give him something real. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Sebastian rested his forehead against hers. "This is probably terrible timing." "The worst," she agreed, but she was smiling. "I don't want to be just another client to you. You're not. You haven't been for a while now. Then have dinner with me tomorrow. A real date, not a work meeting." Lily knew she should think about this, consider the implications, protect herself from potential heartbreak. But standing there in the home she had created for him, wrapped in his arms, the only answer that made sense was, yes. The photographer came the next morning to capture the finished penthouse, and the images were stunning. The space had been completely transformed from cold showpiece to warm sanctuary, every detail carefully chosen to reflect Sebastian's personality and needs. Lily felt a surge of pride looking at the photos, knowing this was some of the best work she had ever done. But she was also acutely aware that the project was finished, which meant her professional relationship with Sebastian was over. All that was left was the personal, and that terrified her as much as it excited her. She arrived at the restaurant that evening in a navy dress that she had changed out of 3 times, her stomach full of butterflies. Sebastian was already there, standing when he saw her, and the smile that lit up his face made her heart skip. "You look beautiful," he said, pulling out her chair. "Thank you, so do you." He was in dark slacks and a gray shirt that made his blue eyes even more striking, and Lily had to remind herself to breathe normally. They ordered wine and appetizers, but the food was secondary to the conversation that flowed easily between them. Without the project as a buffer, they talked about everything else: their families, their childhoods, their dreams and fears. Lily learned that Sebastian had built his hotel empire from a single boutique property he had bought at 23, working insane hours and taking massive risks because he had something to prove to a father who had never believed in him. That his parents were divorced, his mother living in France with her new husband, his father in California running his own business and maintaining their silent competition. "I don't talk to him much anymore," Sebastian admitted, swirling his wine. "Every conversation is just him trying to prove his success is bigger than mine. It's exhausting." "That sounds lonely," Lily said softly. "It was. It is." He reached across the table and took her hand. "But lately I've been feeling less alone." She squeezed his fingers, understanding the courage it took for someone like him to admit vulnerability. "I know what you mean. I've been so focused on building my business that I forgot to build a life. My friends joke that I'm married to my work." "Are you?" "I was. But lately, I've been remembering that there's supposed to be more than just the next project, the next client, the next success." They talked through dinner, through dessert, through multiple cups of coffee, until the restaurant staff began giving them pointed looks, and they realized they were the last customers remaining. "Walk with me," Sebastian asked as they stepped out into the cool night air. They walked through the city streets hand in hand, and it felt natural, right? Sebastian pointed out some of his hotels as they passed them, and Lily told him about some of her other projects in the area. But mostly they just walked, enjoying the simple pleasure of being together without agenda or expectation. "I don't want this night to end," Sebastian said as they eventually circled back toward where his car was parked. "Me neither." He pulled her close, kissing her under the streetlights, and Lily felt something shift inside her, like a door opening to possibilities she had not dared to imagine. "Come home with me," he murmured against her lips. "I want to wake up in the space you created and have you be the first thing I see." Lily knew this was moving fast, knew she should probably be more cautious. But caution felt like cowardice when faced with something that felt this right. "Okay." The drive to his penthouse was quiet with anticipation. They rode the elevator up wrapped around each other, and when the doors opened to reveal the transformed space, Sebastian's home now instead of a showpiece, it felt symbolic somehow. He took her to the master bedroom, the one she had designed with layers of soft fabrics and warm lighting, and they undressed each other slowly, taking time to explore and discover. When they finally came together, it was tender and passionate and perfect, and afterward, lying in his arms with the city lights filtering through the curtains, Lily felt herself falling completely. "Stay," Sebastian whispered, already half asleep. "Don't leave." "I won't," she promised and meant it. She woke to sunlight and the smell of coffee. Following the scent, she found Sebastian in the kitchen, actually using all those appliances she had insisted on, making breakfast with an ease that suggested he had been doing this regularly. "You're cooking," she said, leaning against the doorframe. He turned, and his smile was warm and genuine. "You built me a kitchen I actually want to use. It seemed wrong not to." He gestured to the counter. "I made too much, as usual. Help me eat this." They had breakfast at the custom dining table, and it felt domestic and wonderful. Afterward, Sebastian had to leave for a meeting, and Lily went back to her apartment to shower and change, feeling like she was floating. Over the next few weeks, they fell into a pattern. Sebastian would text her throughout the day, silly messages that made her laugh during client meetings. They would have dinner together several times a week, sometimes at restaurants, increasingly often at his place where he was discovering a genuine love of cooking. On weekends, they explored the city together, visiting museums and parks and hidden neighborhood spots that neither of them had taken time to appreciate before. Lily found herself keeping a toothbrush at his penthouse, then a drawer of clothes, then half the closet. It happened gradually and naturally, neither of them formally discussing it, just acknowledging through actions that they wanted to be together as much as possible. "Move in with me," Sebastian said one night as they were curled up on his sectional, jazz playing softly in the background. Lily looked up from the book she had been reading. "What? Move in? Officially? You're here most of the time anyway, and I hate the nights when you're not." He set down his own book, turning to face her fully. "I know it's fast and I know it's crazy, but I'm falling in love with you, Lily. Actually, I think I'm already there, and I want to come home to you every day in this space that you created for us." Her heart was pounding, emotions swirling. "Sebastian, you don't have to answer right now, just think about it." But Lily did not need to think about it. She had been falling in love with him too, had been fighting it because it seemed impossible that something this good could be real. "Yes," she said. "Yes. Yes, I'll move in. Yes, I'm falling in love with you too. Yes to all of it." He kissed her then, deep and claiming, and they ended up making love right there on the sectional, christening the space with their passion. Moving in together was surprisingly easy. Lily did not have much beyond her clothes and a few personal items, having spent most of her adult life focused on creating homes for other people rather than herself. Sebastian made space for everything she brought, insisting that this was their home now, not just his. The first real challenge came a month later when Sebastian's father called, announcing he was in New York for business and wanted to have dinner. Lily could see the tension in Sebastian's shoulders as he agreed to meet. "Come with me," he said after hanging up. "I don't want to do this alone." The dinner was at an expensive steakhouse, the kind of place that was all dark wood and power dynamics. Richard Reynolds was an older version of Sebastian, with the same blue eyes but a hardness around his mouth that his son lacked. "So you're the interior designer," Richard said after they had been introduced, making it sound like an accusation. "I am," Lily replied evenly, refusing to be intimidated. "Must be nice, getting paid to shop and arrange furniture." "Dad," Sebastian said, his voice low with warning. "I'm just making conversation." Richard turned his attention to his son. "I heard you bought another property in Miami. Small potatoes compared to what I'm working on in Dubai, but good for you." And so it went, Richard turning every topic into a competition, dismissing Sebastian's successes while boasting about his own. Lily watched Sebastian's walls go up, the warm, open man she knew retreating behind a cool, professional mask. Finally, she had had enough. "Why did you ask your son to dinner if you're just going to criticize him?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. Richard looked at her in surprise. "Excuse me." You've spent this entire meal trying to make him feel small." "Why, Lily?" Sebastian said quietly, touching her arm. But she was not done. "Sebastian has built something incredible. He's successful and respected and genuinely happy with his life. If you can't see that or be proud of him, that says a lot more about you than it does about him." The table went silent. Richard stared at her, clearly unused to being challenged. Then, slowly, something shifted in his expression. "You're right," he said finally. "I've been an ass." Sebastian looked as shocked as Lily felt. "I've spent so long competing with you that I forgot to just be your father," Richard continued, looking at his son. "I'm proud of you, Sebastian. I've always been proud of you. I'm just not very good at showing it." It was not a complete reconciliation, but it was a start. When they left the restaurant, Sebastian pulled Lily into his arms right there on the sidewalk. "Thank you for defending me. Always," she promised. "That's what you do when you love someone." "I do love you," he said, "more than I thought I could love anyone. I love you too." Things continued to deepen between them. Sebastian introduced Lily to his small circle of close friends, and she was relieved to find they were genuine people who seemed to truly care about him rather than his wealth. She introduced him to her own friends, who teased her mercilessly about landing a billionaire but were genuinely happy to see her so clearly in love. 6 months after she had moved in, Lily landed her biggest commission to date, redesigning a historic hotel in Boston. It was a massive project, the kind that could define her career, but it would require her to spend significant time on site. "How long?" Sebastian asked when she told him. 3 months, maybe 4. I would come back on weekends when I could, but you would be gone most of the time." He ran a hand through his hair, processing. "This is a huge opportunity for you, it is, but I don't want to leave you." Sebastian pulled her close. "I don't want you to leave either, but I'm not going to be the person who holds you back from your dreams. You take this project and we'll figure out the rest." The long-distance arrangement was hard. They talked every night, video chatting while Sebastian cooked dinner and Lily went over design plans, but it was not the same as being together. Lily threw herself into the work, determined to create something exceptional, but she missed him constantly. Sebastian surprised her by showing up in Boston one Thursday evening. "I moved some meetings around," he said, when she opened her hotel room door to find him standing there with flowers. "Figured I could work remotely for a few days." That weekend, as they explored Boston together, Sebastian walking the historic hotel property with her and offering thoughtful feedback on her designs, Lily realized something. They had built something real, something that could withstand distance and challenges and time. This was not just passion or convenience, it was partnership. The project wrapped up successfully 3.5 months later, and when Lily finally came home to New York, Sebastian was waiting at the Penthouse with candles and rose petals and a smile that made her heart ache with love. "Welcome home," he said, pulling her into his arms. "I missed you so much." "I missed you too, but we made it work and I'm so proud of what you created up there." They made love slowly that night, relearning each other, and afterward, lying tangled in the sheets, Sebastian said, "Marry me." Lily's breath caught. "What?" He shifted to face her, his blue eyes serious and full of love. "Marry me, Lily Kane. I don't have a ring yet because I just decided this about 5 seconds ago, but I'll get you whatever you want. I just know that I want to spend the rest of my life with you. You redesigned my penthouse, then you redesigned my entire life, and I've never been happier or more myself than I am with you." Tears were streaming down her face, but she was smiling. "You're serious." "Completely. I love you. I want to wake up next to you for the rest of my life. I want to have kids with you and grow old with you and build a real life together, not just the successful, busy one I was living before. Say yes." "Yes," she whispered. "Yes," Absolutely yes. He kissed her, and Lily felt her entire world shift into perfect focus. This was what she had been designing toward all along, not just beautiful spaces, but a beautiful life. They bought the ring together the next week, a vintage sapphire that reminded Lily of Sebastian's eyes. The engagement was short because neither of them saw a point in waiting. They were married 6 months later in a small ceremony at the Penthouse, surrounded by close friends and family. Richard Reynolds was there, and while his relationship with Sebastian was still a work in progress, he made a speech at the reception that actually brought his son to tears. "You found someone who sees you for who you are, not what you've accomplished. Hold on to that." Lily's parents, a teacher and a carpenter from upstate New York, were overwhelmed by the wealth on display but proud of their daughter. "You did good, sweetheart," her father said, hugging her tight. "Not because he's rich, but because he looks at you like you hung the moon." The honeymoon was 2 weeks in Italy, exploring cities and countryside, eating incredible food and making love and talking about their future. They discussed where they wanted to be in 5 years, 10 years, 20. Sebastian wanted to expand his hotel business, but in a more personal direction. Boutique properties that felt like homes rather than just luxury accommodations. Lily wanted to grow her design firm but maintain the personal touch that had made her successful, never becoming so big that she lost connection with her clients. "I want kids," Sebastian said one night as they sat on their hotel balcony overlooking the Amalfi Coast. "I want to be a better father than mine was, and I want our kids to grow up knowing they're loved for who they are." "I want that too," Lily agreed. 2 or 3, maybe. A house outside the city with a yard and space to run around, but keeping the penthouse for when we need to be in Manhattan. "You're already redesigning our future," Sebastian teased. "That's what I do. I imagine spaces and lives and then make them real." When they returned to New York, Lily discovered she was pregnant. It had not been planned, but when she saw the positive test, she felt nothing but joy. Sebastian cried when she told him. Actually cried, holding her close and thanking her for giving him everything he had never dared to dream about. The pregnancy was smooth, and they spent those 9 months preparing, buying a house in Westchester with the yard and space they had discussed, keeping the penthouse but making the suburban house their primary residence. Lily designed a nursery that was warm and welcoming, filled with natural light and soft colors, a space for their daughter to grow up feeling safe and loved. Emma Reynolds was born on a sunny May morning, with her father's blue eyes and her mother's smile. Sebastian held her with a tenderness that made Lily fall in love with him all over again, watching him whisper promises to their daughter about the kind of father he would be, the kind of man he would show her she deserved. The first year of parenthood was exhausting and wonderful. Lily took a step back from work, taking only select projects that truly inspired her. Sebastian rearranged his schedule to be more present, working from home when possible, refusing to miss the important moments. They figured it out together, learning to be parents while still nurturing their marriage, making time for date nights and conversations that had nothing to do with diaper changes or sleep schedules. When Emma was 18 months old, they discovered they were expecting again. This time it was a boy, James, who arrived 2 weeks early and seemed determined to make his presence known from day one with powerful lungs and strong opinions. "Our family is complete," Sebastian said one night when both kids were finally asleep and they had collapsed onto the couch together, exhausted but content. "It really is," Lily agreed, snuggling into his side. 5 years after they had married, Lily was offered a partnership in a prestigious design firm. It would mean more money, more recognition, more opportunities. But it would also mean less control over her projects and her schedule, more time away from home and family. What do you want to do? Sebastian asked when she told him about the offer. I don't know. Part of me wants to take it because it's validation, proof that I've made it, but another part feels like I'd be giving up what makes my work special. Then don't take it. Start your own firm, be your own boss. You have the reputation and the contacts. I can help with the business side if you want, or stay completely out of it if you'd rather. But don't compromise your vision for someone else's idea of success. It was exactly what she needed to hear. Lily turned down the partnership and launched Kane Design, a boutique firm that took on only a handful of projects per year, each one chosen because it excited her. She hired a small team of talented designers who shared her philosophy about creating spaces that reflected the people who lived in them, not just trends or status. The firm was successful from the start, helped by Lily's reputation but sustained by the quality of the work. She took on projects that ranged from penthouse apartments to family homes to boutique hotels, several of which were Sebastian's properties. Working with her husband was surprisingly fun, their skills complementing each other in ways that made both the hotels and their marriage stronger. Sebastian's own business continued to grow, but he had followed through on his vision of creating boutique properties that felt personal rather than corporate. Each hotel reflected its location and community, designed to be gathering places for locals as well as destinations for travelers. He credited Lily with teaching him that success was not just about profit margins, but about creating something meaningful. On their 10th wedding anniversary, they renewed their vows at the Penthouse where their story had begun. Emma was 7, James was 5, and both kids participated in the ceremony, presenting rings and giggling through their parents' promises to each other. 10 years ago, I hired you to redesign my penthouse, Sebastian said during the ceremony, holding both Lily's hands. But what you really did was redesign my entire life. You showed me what mattered, what was possible, what love could be. You gave me a home, a family, and a purpose beyond just accumulating success. I fall more in love with you every single day, and I promise to spend the rest of my life making sure you know how grateful I am that you walked into my life and decided I needed more than just new furniture. Lily was crying, but she managed to speak through the tears. You let me see you, really see you, past the wealth and success to the person underneath. You trusted me not just with your space but with your heart. You've supported my dreams, made me laugh, been the best father to our children. You're my partner, my best friend, my home. I love you more than I ever thought possible, and I promise to keep loving you, keep choosing you for the rest of our lives. They kissed while their kids cheered and their friends applauded, and Lily thought about how far they had come from that first meeting in a sterile penthouse. She had been hired to design a space, but what she had really done was create a life, not just for Sebastian but for both of them. The years continued to pass, full of love and laughter and the beautiful chaos of raising children and building careers and maintaining a marriage through all the challenges life threw at them. Emma grew up to be creative and thoughtful, inheriting her mother's eye for design. James was bold and entrepreneurial, with his father's business sense and his mother's passion. When Emma was 16, she asked her mother about the beginning of her relationship with Sebastian. They were working together on redecorating Emma's bedroom, and the teenager was curious about origin stories. How did you know Dad was the one? She asked. Lily thought about it, really considered the question. I think I knew that first day when he said he wanted peace. Most people ask for impressive or expensive or trendy, but he wanted something real, something that was actually his. And then as I got to know him, I realized he was looking for that in every part of his life, not just his home. He was looking for something genuine, and so was I. That's really romantic, Emma said. It is. But it's also been work, good work. We've had to choose each other every day through busy schedules and disagreements and all the ordinary challenges of building a life together. The romance is important, but so is the commitment. Do you think I'll find that someday? Lily pulled her daughter close. I think if you stay true to yourself and don't settle for anything less than someone who sees you and loves you for who you really are, you will. And until then, you focus on building a life that makes you happy on your own. On their 20th anniversary, Sebastian gave Lily a gift that made her cry. It was a leather-bound photo album, and inside were pictures documenting the transformation of the penthouse alongside pictures of their life together. The first pages showed the sterile, impersonal space followed by her design renderings. Then came pictures from the renovation, the finished product, and finally photos from throughout their marriage. Their wedding, the kids as babies, family vacations, ordinary moments at home. You redesigned my penthouse, Sebastian said as she looked through the album. But more than that, you redesigned what I thought life could be. You showed me that success without connection is empty, that money can't buy the things that actually matter. You gave me everything, Lily. Everything that's real and true and worth having. You gave me just as much, she said, reaching up to cup his face. You taught me that letting someone in isn't weakness, it's strength. That building a life with someone doesn't mean giving up your dreams, it means having someone to share them with. I love you so much, Sebastian Reynolds. I love you too, Lily Reynolds. Here's to 20 more years and 20 after that, and however many we're lucky enough to get. They kissed, surrounded by the home that had brought them together, and Lily felt grateful for every moment, every choice, every design decision that had led to this life. Emma graduated high school and went to college for design, surprising no one. James decided to study business and hospitality, planning to work with his father eventually. Sebastian and Lily watched their children grow into capable, confident adults and felt proud of what they had built together. The penthouse remained their city retreat, but the house in Westchester was home base, full of memories and laughter and the beautiful chaos of a life well lived. Lily's firm continued to thrive, and she took great satisfaction in mentoring young designers, teaching them that great design was about understanding people, not just aesthetics. Sebastian's boutique hotel empire had expanded to 12 properties across the country, each one unique and special. He had reconciled fully with his father before Richard passed away, grateful that they had found peace before it was too late. On their 30th anniversary, surrounded by family and friends, Emma and James planned a surprise party. Both kids had flown in secretly, along with Lily's parents and Sebastian's mother and dozens of friends from throughout their lives. 30 years ago, Mom was hired to redesign Dad's penthouse, Emma said during her speech. But what she actually did was redesign his entire life without permission. She made him slow down and appreciate the things that matter. She taught him how to live, not just exist. And in doing so, she created the family and the life that all of us here get to be part of. To Mom and Dad, the best example of love and partnership I could ask for. Lily and Sebastian stood together, his arm around her waist, and looked out at the gathered crowd of people who had been part of their journey. Their story had started with a professional project, but it had become so much more. It had become a love story, a family story, a story about two people who had found each other and built something beautiful together. Any regrets? Sebastian whispered in her ear. Not a single one, Lily whispered back. Just that I didn't hire you sooner. She laughed and kissed him, and the crowd cheered and their life continued on, full of love and purpose, and the beautiful design of two lives perfectly intertwined. Years later, when people asked Lily about her most successful project, she never talked about the hotels or the award-winning residences or the published features in design magazines. She talked about a penthouse that had been too cold and too perfect, and a man who had been lost in success, and how creating a home for him had led to creating a life together. She talked about how the best designs were not about furniture and finishes, but about understanding what people needed to feel whole. And Sebastian, when asked about the smartest business decision he had ever made, never mentioned acquisitions or investments or strategic partnerships. He talked about hiring an interior designer who had seen past his wealth to the person underneath, who had refused to just give him what he asked for, and instead gave him what he needed. He talked about how she had redesigned his penthouse, then redesigned his entire life without permission, and how it was the best thing that had ever happened to him. They grew old together, their love deepening with each passing year. They became grandparents, watching Emma and James build their own families and careers. They traveled together, explored together, continued to learn and grow together. The penthouse was eventually sold, too full of memories and too many stairs for aging bodies, but the house in Westchester remained, full of grandchildren's laughter and holiday gatherings and ordinary Tuesday dinners. On their 50th anniversary, weak but still present, still together, they sat in their backyard watching the sun set. Their children and grandchildren were inside preparing dinner, and for a moment it was just the two of them. "Did you ever imagine this?" Lily asked, her hand in his. "That day I walked into your penthouse, did you imagine we'd end up here?" Sebastian squeezed her fingers gently. "No, I imagined getting some new furniture, maybe actually using my kitchen. I never imagined getting everything. Everything. Love, family, purpose, home. You gave me everything, Lily. You redesigned my life, and it turned out more beautiful than I ever could have designed it myself." "We designed it together," she corrected. "That's what made it work." "Together," he agreed. "Always together." They sat in comfortable silence as the sun painted the sky in shades of orange and pink. Two people who had found each other against all odds and built a life of meaning and love. It had started with a professional project, a simple redesign of a penthouse apartment. But it had become so much more, a complete transformation of two lives that had been incomplete until they found each other. Inside, their family waited, the legacy of their love made manifest in children and grandchildren, and the values they had passed down. Outside, the sun set on another perfect day in a life full of them. A life designed not by chance but by choice, not by money but by love, not by one person but by two people who had chosen to build something beautiful together. And in the end, that was the best design of all.